Oki, Tansy, Dananastata, Wasich. Hello, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us bright and early in suits and ties when it's usually a day for jeans and the Western tuxedo. I'm Deborah Yedlin. I'm the President and CEO of the Calgary Chamber of Commerce, and I'm so pleased to welcome all of you here this morning for what is the hottest ticket in town, a conversation with Federal Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, the Honourable Tim Hodgson. Minister, the secondary market for this breakfast could rival what's going on with Oilers tickets. I'd like to start our event by acknowledging the land upon which we're gathered today. The Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta includes the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, including the Siksika, the Piikani and the Kainai Nations, the Tsuut'ina, and the Stoney Nakoda, which includes the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Good Stoney Nations. Calgary is also home to the Otepisiwak Métis government, specifically the Calgary Nose Hill Métis District and Calgary Elbow Métis District of the Battle River Territory, and many urban Indigenous peoples from across Canada. Our economy, especially in natural resources, is built on these lands that have been cared for by Indigenous peoples for generations. Resource development and reconciliation are deeply linked, and the energy sector knows that. Today, we see more and more equity partnerships with more Indigenous communities having a seat and a voice at the table in projects and decisions that affect this land and support their communities. We know the path to sustainable growth runs through these partnerships. And we have a lot of companies who know and live this and take pride in being at the forefront of reconciliation in Canada, and many of them have sponsored our event today. Please join me in thanking our generous sponsors who have made this morning possible. Our presenting sponsor, Suncor, our thanking sponsor, Imperial Oil, our supporting sponsors, ATCO, Capital Power, Pathways Alliance, Enbridge, Tourmaline Oil, Pembina Pipeline, Altalink, Global Public Affairs, Cenovus, ConocoPhillips, CAP, Meg Energy, E3 Lithium, Southbow, TC Energy. Minister, this impressive list of sponsors is proof of how much it means to the sector and to Calgary that you are here so early in your mandate. I think this is one of the first keynotes from any minister in the country since Cabinet was named, and we don't take this for granted. We also have several other notable guests with us today, including Corey Hogan, MP for Calgary Confederation, the Honourable Lois Mitchell, the 18th Lieutenant Governor of Alberta, who I might add is wearing Oilers colours this morning. Hopefully it'll help tonight, we'll see. The Honourable Brian Jean, Minister of Energy and Minerals, the Honourable Rajan Sani, Minister of Indigenous Relations, the Honourable Rebecca Schultz, Minister Environment and Protected Areas, the Honourable Dan Williams, Minister of Municipal Affairs, Naheed Nenshi, Leader of the Alberta NDP, Najwan Al-Junaid, MLA for Calgary Glenmore, Mayor Jody Gondek, Rob Anderson, Chief of Staff and Executive Director of the Premier's Office, and Bruce McAllister, Executive Director, Premier's Southern Alberta Office. Please give a round of applause for our sponsors and our distinguished guests. I'd also like to recognize a few of our board members in attendance this morning: Scott Wenger, Director of Government Relations at Suncor, and Spencer Forgo, Vice President, Government Relations and Corporate Affairs at ATCO. Thank you for joining us and for your ongoing support of the Chamber year-round. Minister, the fact this breakfast sold out within minutes of being launched on a Friday before the long weekend speaks to how excited we are all to hear from you. And it looks like it's a bit of a whole old home week for you in terms of the connections that you're making and people that you're seeing in this room. And like I said, there could have been some upside in the secondary market for the tickets. We're excited, and I can say this with certainty because I've interviewed each one of the natural resources ministers since 1997, and we've never had a natural resources minister who is as energy literate and as well versed in the world of investment, risk, and capital markets and capital allocation as you are. We don't have to do our version of Oil Patch 101. So, no pressure. And we applaud your decision to run for office, for choosing, as Teddy Roosevelt said, to be the man in the arena rather than being the critic on the sidelines. It's no secret we are passionate about the energy in this province, literally and figuratively. This is the province that had the first price on carbon, figured out how to extract oil from sand, make money at it, and continue to reduce carbon intensity per barrel through innovation. It's also where Kootenay drilled the longest well in Canadian history, more than 9,000 meters. It's the home of the largest CO2 pipeline, and where Aostra remains an example of what happens when the public, private, and academic sectors work together. It's where the IOC got its start, which the federal government has now established on its own, that set the tone for new opportunities and meaningful opportunities for First Nations communities and resource development. Canada's energy sector is solutions-focused and forward-looking and collaborative. The Pathways Initiative that brings together Canada's oil sands producers, competitors really, to risk capital and build a carbon capture and storage network to decrease emissions and ensure Canada's oil sands can be produced for decades to come is unprecedented on this planet. No other sector has done this anywhere. I understand plenty of conversations have already taken place, and there'll be more in the next day or so, and I'm sure some of them have been challenging. Reminding you about policies like the emissions cap, the Clean Electricity Regulations, the Impact Assessment Act, Bill C-59, all of which are obfuscating development. When the CPPIB says it's walking back its net zero investing commitment, it should be seen as a sign of misguided policy. Hopefully, these conversations have been encouraging and solutions-focused. I have no doubt they have been frank. What we do know, as we parse economic data over the last 10 years, is that Canada's energy sector remains the most productive, and it falls off a cliff in 2014 when the oil price crashes and the regulatory quagmire starts. The data shows energy sector investment correlating directly with economic productivity, including equity partnerships with Indigenous communities and national prosperity as a whole. All of Canada's energy sector takes considerable pride in doing what we can for the economy, and too often it feels like no one wants to acknowledge that outside the province. Minister, we look forward to working with you in your new portfolio, working together to strengthen the cards we have to play in the new world, as I heard you say this morning on the Calgary Eye-Opener. And now it's a great pleasure for me to introduce someone leading a company that exemplifies the tenacity, innovation, and environmental stewardship of the sector and knows very well the productivity and economic power of Canada's oil and gas industry. Rich Kruger, who serves as President and CEO of Suncor, our presenting sponsor. Rich took on the helm of Suncor in April 2023, when he was lured out of a somewhat brief retirement after stepping down as Chairman and CEO of Imperial Oil to lead Suncor into its next chapter. And in case you don't know this yet, he's not shy about voicing his opinions. Welcome, Rich.
Shy. I don't even know what that word means. Thank you, Deb. To you and your team for inviting the minister here to join us today. Thank you for providing Suncor the opportunity to be the presenting sponsor. I think I can safely say that Calgary is very interested in what will be said here today. Based on the energy in the room, if I didn't know better, I would actually think oil prices were a bit higher. In some of his first comments to the media, the minister said that he would be traveling west. In fact, he stated he would be traveling west very soon and that he looked forward to digging in. Well, thank you, Minister, for keeping your promise and joining us here today. And as an oil sands miner, Suncor knows a little bit about digging in. And in today's world, we will take all the help we can get. So thank you. In the short time that we've gotten to know each other, it's clear you're listening, you're learning, you're passionate, you're committed to work together to achieve Canada's overall economic ambitions. And those ambitions include conventional energy. Your boss, Prime Minister Carney, said that the new government wants to build, baby, build. That is music to Alberta's ears. Recently, 38 energy CEOs sent a letter to the Prime Minister outlining a plan or prerequisites to do so. It stated that our industry is ready and willing to play a major role in building Canada's future together. The letter called for a reset, recognizing that a door is opening where the world wants and needs more of what Canada can provide. And we believe Canada can and should walk through that door proudly, quickly, and united. At a recent press conference in Europe, Prime Minister Carney acknowledged Canada does indeed have what the world wants. And as he started his list, it included our ability to support global energy security. It's important to note that 90% of the world's remaining hydrocarbon reserves are contained in 10 countries, and only 2 of those, Canada and the United States, some could debate that, are democratic. The United States there, folks, that was just for clarity. For clarity. Jeez. Oh, I'm going to get in trouble for that. Canada can prosper by providing the world with reliable and affordable energy and make the world safer and more secure at the same time. By working together, we can achieve this vision of making Canada a global energy superpower, including all forms of energy, responsibly produced, economically, and environmentally. The minister has had a distinguished career before entering politics. I thought coming out of retirement, I thought at times that I was the silliest one in the room. Well, coming out of business into politics, I've got company in this one, so thank you, Minister, for that. But a distinguished career, serving as a reserve officer in the armed forces for 6 years, working around the world for 2 decades with Goldman Sachs, including as CEO in Canada, serving as a special advisor to Mark Carney when he was the governor of the Bank of Canada. The minister has served on numerous boards, most recently the chair of Hydro One. He was a chair of the Canadian Investment Regulatory Organization and a director of Calgary's Meg Energy. He is certainly no stranger to finance and no stranger to energy. And importantly for us, the minister is no stranger to the West. Born in Winnipeg, the Prairie provinces are in his blood, and he also has ties to Alberta. His first deal with Goldman Sachs, if I understand it correctly, was financing the Alliance Pipeline. It's a highly impressive resume, but there's more. As a longtime supporter of True Patriot Love Foundation, the minister has helped lead expeditions of ill and injured soldiers together with business and community leaders to the Himalayas, the North Pole, Antarctica. And I hear his nickname during his years in business was Bulldog. I like that. I like that. Minister, we're pleased to host you today in Calgary. We hope today's conversation will be the start of collaboration in the best interests of Canada. So please join me in welcoming Canada's Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, Tim Hodgson.
Wow. When I was walking in here, I said to my team, I've spent a lot of time in this hotel over the years. Usually it was in small boardrooms where you were trying to avoid being noticed and you were trying to get deals done. This is a little different than what I'm used to, but we'll figure it out. Hello, bonjour. Thank you for having me here today. And above all, thank you, Deborah, for the work that you do at the Chamber. Your priorities, securing diversified trade, attracting, retaining, and investing in talent, and making it easier to do business are going to help Calgary strong now and into the future. I also see my colleague Corey Hogan, Ministers Jean and Schutz, Mayor Gondek, as well as several other former current MPs and MLAs and mayors in the audience. I want to thank all of you for being here and for doing the work that you do to represent and strengthen this province and the city. I'm new to this. I'm still learning. I hope to follow in your footsteps. I found this visit, the Calgarians are pretty quick to ask me where I'm from. My father was in the Canadian Forces, and later I was in the forces myself. So when people ask me, where are you from? I say, where would you like me to be from? Because I can be from there. Of course, now people say, well, you're just a politician when you say that, but it's actually true. And I think it's pretty typical of many Canadians. Many of us come from somewhere else. Many of us come from somewhere else in this country, and many of us come from somewhere else in the world. And what we all have in common is a fierce loyalty to where we live, to our cities, to our province, and to, above all, to our country, Canada. And that's what I want to speak to you about today, about our country, about what unites us as Canadians, about this province and this city, and the role that you play in making Canada a conventional and clean energy superpower. But you likely don't know much about me. You heard a little bit. As Johnny Cash says, I've been everywhere, man. But as you heard, my roots are in the prairies. My grandmother was born in Moose Jaw. It was the Northwest Territories at the time because it hadn't yet become Saskatchewan. My mother was born in Calgary, and most of her family still lives here. I think some of them are in the audience today. Following my dad's example, I joined the forces when I got out of high school when I was 17. That stint taught me a lot about service. And if you know anyone who has served, you know that it shapes their life forever. Then I went to work at Goldman Sachs, commuting from New York to Calgary, and many of you in this room were part of that experience for me over the years. As Rich said, one of the first deals that I did when I came to Calgary was working on the Alliance Pipeline. For those of you who don't have gray hair like me, back in the 1990s, there was too much gas in Alberta. Prices were really low, and no one was making money. The Alliance Pipeline helped helped change that, delivering rich natural gas and liquids from the Western Canadian Sedimentary Basin to the Chicago market hubs, and it put the basin back in balance. That pipeline closed the natural gas differential, supported jobs, good jobs, and brought Alberta better royalties and the federal government more revenue. A better price for Canadian energy helped every Canadian. Just like more recently, the building of the TMX expansion has done. My experience in the energy and resource sector did not stop there. As was mentioned, I've served on the board of Meg Energy and Hydro One. I think many of the Meg Energy board members are here in the crowd. I'm very proud of having served on that board. It's a great company. I've helped finance OSB mills across this province in High Level and Grand Prairie. I've worked on IPOs, like in Saskatchewan, where we financed Cameco going to the New York Stock Exchange. And I worked on the original IPO of Capital Power here in Alberta. And I helped finance potash projects and even a pulp mill in Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan. As was mentioned, during the global financial crisis, I had the privilege of serving our now Prime Minister, Mark Carney, as his special advisor at the Bank of Canada. Those were turbulent days, and they taught me that leadership is about action when it matters most. But ultimately, the belief in the power of leadership, combined with a deep sense of public service and patriotism I learned in the forces, is why I'm here today. I'm a pragmatist. I'm a businessman. I'm learning to be a politician. When I see something that needs changing, I promise you I will work hard to change it. That's why I joined this government, because I believe in public service that delivers results. And most of all, because I love this country. Today we find ourselves at a pivotal moment. Global economies and markets are volatile. President Trump's tariffs are disrupting trade, threatening Canadian jobs and industries, and rewriting the rules of the game. We did not ask for this trade war. But if we are going to be in a trade war, we are going to win. We are going to win because we are one and we are Team Canada. When President Trump says we don't need Canada's lumber, energy, autos, minerals, etc., it's not exactly subtle. We know what that means. The Americans really need all of those things. The president likes to talk about it like a card game. So if we're going to sit across the table from him or any other country in this new world, we need to sit across the table and hold Canada's best cards. That means being able to sell our products to the world. It means expanding our markets, modernizing our infrastructure, and creating the conditions to compete and win. That's why I'm working with my new cabinet colleagues in every provincial and territorial government to retool our economy, to strengthen Canada's hand, not just when we're talking to Washington, but when we're talking to everyone in the world. We're in a new world order. Ultimately, though, this is not a game. Jobs and livelihoods are at risk. From miners in Saskatchewan to forestry workers in British Columbia, from workers on the rigs in Alberta and offshore in Newfoundland to Ontario's auto plants. The old economic relationship with the United States is over. We need to accept that. We need to prepare to compete as Canadians on our terms. Prime Minister Carney has laid out a clear strategy. We will be masters of our own home. We will not bow to economic aggression. We will defend our workers, our industries, and our values. We will build a new foundation, one that delivers the strongest, most resilient economy in the G7. We are living through what the Prime Minister calls a hinge moment in our national story. This is not a time for half measures or slow steps. It's a time for bold action, clear decisions, and a renewed spirit for building. That means reframing the national conversation. No more asking, why build? The real question is, how do we get it done? That means breaking apart barriers and cutting through red tape. It also means doing things responsibly the first time, meeting our duty to consult so Indigenous peoples are true partners, and protecting our environment so we don't have to clean up mistakes later. I want to be very clear. In the new economy we are building, Canada will no longer be defined by delay. We will be defined by delivery. I'm going to say that again. In the new economy we are building, Canada will no longer be defined by delay. We will be defined by delivery. So what does that mean? It begins with a vision to build Canada into a conventional and clean energy and natural resources superpower. We have the resources. We have the people. We have the ideas. And we now have a government determined to lead and help unlock the potential of Canadian workers and businesses. We are taking major steps to back that vision with action. First, we will identify and fast-track projects of national interest. These are the projects that matter to our economy, our environment, and our sovereignty. No more 5-year reviews. Decisions will come in 2 years for all projects. To make that happen, we're standing up a major federal projects office. It will be a single window for permits, bringing together what used to be scattered across departments. It's about making one project, one review, real. Less red tape, more certainty, better outcomes. And we're doing this not just for speed, but for purpose, for Canada. Because Canadian energy is not just about domestic prosperity, it's a tool for global stability and transformation. It's high time we trade more with people who share our values, not just our borders. You know, government will work fast. Our new government will work fast with the provinces and territories, industry, and Indigenous people to diversify our trade and open and expand new markets for energy and natural resources. Every barrel of responsibly produced Canadian oil and every kilowatt of clean Canadian power can displace less clean, riskier energy elsewhere in the world. Our exports can help our allies break dependence on authoritarian regimes and help the world reduce emissions. And by working with the energy sector to make investments that fight climate change, we can get more barrels to market while cutting carbon emissions. And by the way, the building doesn't just stop with energy. We need housing too. As you in Calgary know well, that needs good Canadian lumber. And you know what? We have great Canadian lumber and great Canadian engineered wood products. It's basic economics, comparative advantage. We're better at energy, forestry, mining than most of the world. We do it cleaner, safer, and with stronger labor standards and Indigenous rights. Let's be proud of that. And let's use the revenues to strengthen our economy, fund public services, and build the next generation of Canadian prosperity. I am not here to waste your time. Mine, yours, or Canada's. Like Prime Minister Carney, I have a strong vision for what each sector within Canada's energy and natural resources fabric should look like. So let's talk about that. Let's start with oil and gas. Canada will remain a reliable global supplier, not just today, but for decades to come. The real challenge is not whether we produce, but whether we can get the best products to market before someone else does. We need infrastructure that gets our energy to Tidewater and to trusted allies, diversifying beyond the United States. We will invest in carbon capture, methane reduction, and other technologies to ensure Canadian oil and gas is not only produced responsibly, but is the most competitive in the world. All of us, governments and industry, need to get the Pathways Project done. This government will not be a government of talk, but a government of action. We need the same from our partners in the province of Alberta and the Pathways Alliance. Your federal government has committed to certainty, to support, and to making Canada an energy superpower. But we need partners who are also willing to make good on their promises. Those promises are to Albertans and to all Canadians. We need to demonstrate to our customers outside the United States and to our fellow Canadians that we are a responsible industry, that this government believes Pathway is critical to that reality. Through it all, we need to ask questions about two things at the same time: economics and security. They run in parallel, but they're not the same. One project can be the answer to both. But first, let's make sure we're asking ourselves the right questions. For those of you who have gray hair like me, maybe you remember the oil embargo of 1973, when the SS Manhattan was bound for Eastern Canada with loads of oil that we bought, and the then President of the United States picked up the phone and diverted those tankers to the United States. We can never let that happen again. We need energy security for all of Canada. Eastern Canada needs better supply security. We need to reduce our exposure to foreign energy in a world where we may not be able to rely on trade agreements with our partners. Energy is power. Energy is Canada's superpower. It gives us an opportunity to build the strongest economy in the G7. guide the world in the right direction, and be strong when we show up at the negotiating table. So we can't end the conversation around energy only having talked about oil and gas. We must also invest in promising scalable energy resources like hydrogen, geothermal, advanced biofuels, renewables, and nuclear. And I want to be clear, I understand Alberta has invested in more renewables than any other province in this country. These are not speculative bets. They are scalable, exportable solutions with rising global demand that will diversify and strengthen our economy. So let's talk a bit about electricity. As the former board chair of Hydro One, I know a little bit about the power industry and Canadian electricity. I believe our future depends on integrated electricity grids. Our new government will quickly work with the provinces and territories on east-west transmission and a better integrated system. I had some very productive discussions with Minister Neudorf yesterday on this exact topic. This is part of what the Prime Minister means when he says one economy, not 13. A pan-Canadian grid means more reliable, affordable, sustainable power for Canadians. It means powering industries from AI to manufacturing. And it means exporting energy between provinces who want Canadian solutions. Let me turn to critical minerals. When it comes to mining, we know that Canada also has what the world needs. We have lithium, we have copper, we have nickel, we have cobalt, we have manganese. And of course, we have one of the world's largest supply of high-quality uranium. I could keep going. But we need to do more than just dig. We need to process and refine here at home and export to the world. Our first and last mile fund will connect remote projects to infrastructure, ensuring our critical minerals get to market with the associated value-added processing, kind of like what we do with our bitumen. This is about creating a secure, vertically integrated supply chain that makes Canada the global supplier of choice and puts strong cards in our hand when we have to have conversations with our trading partners. Finally, I'll talk about the forestry sector, the lifeblood of some 300 communities across Canada, including many right here in Alberta. Canadian forest companies continue to face unjustified duties when exporting lumber to the United States. These duties continue to place needless pressure on the Canada-US trading relationship, impacting everyone from workers to home builders to consumers. While we continue to work towards a long-term solution, we will use more Canadian wood at home to address Canada's housing and other building needs. Let me talk a little bit about the reset in our relationship, and specifically about Alberta. I was sworn in as an MP on Tuesday. I don't know where the bathroom is yet. I went to my first cabinet meeting on Wednesday, and I got on a plane Wednesday night and went to Regina. That's a signal, guys. That's a signal that I understand the prairies isn't just Alberta. We also have a partner in Saskatchewan. And after I spent time with Deputy Premier Ryder, I got on a plane and came here. And as you've heard, I've been talking with industry leaders, First Nations, and my partners in the Alberta government. This relationship matters, and I'm committed to a clean slate. I may live in Toronto right now, but I was born in the prairies. I want you to understand that I will also be a voice for Alberta and Western Canada around the cabinet table. You have some great MPs from this province. Corey is here today. Eleanor's up in Edmonton. But you have other voices. You have other voices in the cabinet table who understand the people of Alberta. President Trump has done a lot, but one thing he's done unintentionally is remind us that we need to act as one Canada. And not just one Canada, but one economy and one market. That includes actively working with provincial and territorial governments to harmonize and link carbon markets across this country. Improving our system of carbon markets will make sure that as Canadian industry reduces emissions, we are still competitive, able to withstand America's trade war, and positioned to take advantage of our new opportunities. I'm working closely with Minister de Bruzen and others to make this a reality. The nation-building projects we must deliver cannot be delivered by governments on their own. As a business person, I understand that. These projects will be built by the private sector with the support of Indigenous communities and other stakeholders. Governments can be a catalyst and an enabler, and the federal government is ready to do our part. I know with your support, we can get this done. These projects are crucial because not only are global markets changing, but so too is our global environment. We need to build to meet both of these challenges. And that will not be easy, and it will not be free. That will involve thinking outside the box, outside of electoral cycles, and digging in on solutions that allow us to hand down a competitive, sustainable economy to our children and grandchildren. I also want to say to every worker in this province and this country, thank you. You are an integral part of Team Canada. You make Canada strong. I told you a little bit about me. One of the things I'd like you to know is that I went to a vocational high school in Winnipeg. And many of my classmates did not go to university. One of my very best friends spent 25 years on the rigs in this province. His job on those rigs in Alberta bought him a home. It financed a good life. That's how it should be. During the election, I went door to door in my riding. It's a suburban Toronto riding that would look a lot like suburban ridings in Calgary or Edmonton. I learned that you can knock on any door anywhere in Canada and hear the same thing from new Canadians. We came here to build a better life. They know, like we do in this room, that because of the opportunities Canada offers through jobs in places like our energy sector, it's the best country in the world. And that's what we need to protect. A Canada where hard work still pays off, where good jobs, with or without a degree, are available for future generations. I feel a little weird saying this, but this government isn't just about people in suits from Toronto and Ottawa, but it's not. It's about people in hard hats and drilling pads, in the forests and in the mills. From Peace River to Lethbridge, from engineers to rig workers. That work powers our country, and it earns my respect, and I know it earns your respect. So in closing, a strong Canada needs a strong Alberta. To be strong, we need to build things in this country again. We will make Canada a true, conventional, and clean energy superpower. That is our promise. So let's work together, government, industry, Indigenous partners, labor, to make it happen. The Canadian energy industry is the best in the world. I will say that again. The Canadian energy industry is the best in the world. We will treat it that way. Let's keep it that way. Thank you for having me. I promise you I will be back, because this is just the beginning of our conversations. Your federal government's door is open. My door is open. I want you to bring your ideas. I want you to bring your ambitions. And together, we will build. Thank you.
All right, far side.
Okay.
Well, Minister, as I said, I've interviewed many in your position over the years, and I can honestly say I have never, and I think everybody in this room will agree, heard a speech with such conviction about the importance of Canada's energy sector to the Canadian economy and the opportunity it presents. So thank you for those very encouraging words. And you're right, so many people come here to build a better life. My parents were among those after the war. So yes, this is a great country, and we need to work together to make it even better. So you've outlined a lot of things, going from delay to delivery. It's ambitious. What are your short-term priorities? What's the order of operations in terms of how you want to move your priorities forward in Cabinet, recognizing that there may not be everybody at Cabinet potentially looking at things the same way you are?
Look, I think actions speak louder than words. Sworn in on Tuesday, Cabinet on Wednesday, on a plane Wednesday night to start discussions. I am listening. I am hearing a shared vision that we need to retool our economy. I'm going to be spending time with Minister Jean right after this. I've spent time with Minister Neudorf yesterday. I spent time with Deputy Premier Ryder yesterday in Saskatchewan. And what we're talking about is how can government be a catalyst to retooling our economy, so we have the cards, so we are Canada strong. And that involves conversations around infrastructure, that involves conversations around electricity, that involves conversations around critical minerals, that involves conversations around all of the things that we need to have in our hand to have a strong Canada. And what I am hearing loud and clear is there is a desire to figure this out.
So there was a minister in the 1950s, T.D. Howe, who was the minister of everything and really saw the value of government acting as a catalyst to de-risk investment. How does the new government look at the role of government in de-risking investment to get the big projects done in order to attract the private capital to make it happen?
Yeah.
We saw it with TransCanada. We know what happened with Trans Mountain.
So I don't know if that's good or bad, but I'm a member of the C.D. Howe Institute, so
It's prescient. Let's put it that way.
and I believe in what Minister Howe was doing at the time.
Is this version 2.0?
I'll say that. Look, what I'll say is government needs to be an enabler. The people who allocate capital, the smartest people who allocate capital are sitting in this room.
Right.
Government is not the best allocator of capital. We need to work with our partners in the province. We need to work with our partners in industry to identify those projects that will change the game. Some of those projects may need government support, and that's where provinces, these projects of national interest that we're talking about are going to involve doing things that grow our GDP, help multiple provinces, and put better cards in our hand. So that's what it looks like to me. It's sitting with Minister Jean, it's sitting with Minister Neudorf and saying, how can we work with industry to identify these projects and get them done?
We were in Vancouver yesterday at an LNG conversation yesterday with Petronas, and one of the questions was whether the industrial carbon tax would be an impediment to future development of LNG projects in Canada, and just curious as to what your thoughts are on that, given that there has been clear support for LNG and growing that capacity off the West Coast and East Coast, hopefully.
So I learned a long time ago, you don't get out in front of your boss.
At Goldman, you do learn that lesson very quickly.
What I think the Prime Minister has said, he is focused on outcomes, not how we get there. And I'm sure many of you read the press release that came out of the Premier's meeting in Yellowknife yesterday. I was pretty encouraged by that. I was really encouraged by that, because what I heard was people who were focused on outcomes, who were trying to figure out how to get things done and were committed to dialogue. Look, we're not going to solve these problems by pontificating in front of. We're not going to solve these problems. I don't think we're going to solve these problems by saying stuff to reporters. We're going to solve stuff by sitting in a room where we all know we have the same objective, to make Canada strong, and figure out where there's alignment, focus on that alignment, get that stuff done, grow the overlap of alignment, get more stuff done, grow the overlap of alignment, and get more stuff done.
So one of the things you've talked about, which is this establishment of a single office for project approvals, you know, that's encouraging, going from 5 years to 2 years and hopefully less than that. But there's a sense that we have a window of opportunity that it's shorter in terms of how to accelerate what we need to do, sort of an 18 to 24-month window. How does that sort of project office, that 2-year timing, fit with the sort of sense of urgency that we are all experiencing and feeling right now, given what's going on?
So again, I'm not going to negotiate in public, but what I am hearing when I sit down with my counterparts from Newfoundland to Victoria is, and what we have asked of each of the governments is, let's identify these projects. And in my mind, there's kind of two categories. There's big nation-building projects that we can all get behind that will take longer to get done, will take probably multiple election cycles. But if we can get agreement and build consensus, we can get going and create a framework to make that a reality, where people who allocate capital, where their shareholders will say that's a good investment of capital. But there's also an opportunity to identify some quick wins.
What are those?
I'm not going to negotiate in public. But I can tell you, in every meeting I've had from St. John's to Victoria, to here in Alberta, to in Toronto, there are common projects that we can identify, which will be quick wins. And look, I'm a new politician, but I think the government of Alberta, the people of Alberta elected the government here to get stuff done and to show some quick wins. I think we were elected to show some quick wins. We're going to look for some quick wins.
So one of the challenges that we've had in Canada really is attracting private capital, because there's been a sense that we haven't been open for business, myriad of reasons for that. How do you, and certainly the energy sector, as you know, has benefited from the attraction of private capital. It's been harder for companies to say, I'm going to invest in Canada versus going somewhere else. How do we change that and attract capital back to the country?
So, look,
Which is also, it works into your affordability conversation because it means that the dollar's properly valued, et cetera. I mean, there's more to it.
Yeah. So I'm from the private sector. I sat on boards. I understand when projects go forward, people look at the lifetime ROE of a project. They have to make assessment of the risk return of putting capital to work. That's how the private sector gets stuff done. We need to figure out projects that are going to help, and we need to enable things so the private sector can say to their shareholders, I'd rather put money into these projects than return capital to shareholders. I'll draw an analogy. I think the taxpayers of Canada and the taxpayers, I won't prejudge, but I suspect Minister Jean would say the same thing. The taxpayers of Alberta are going to say, if the governments are going to catalyze some of these projects, we want to see bang for our buck. We want to, for me, for you, to be able to demonstrate to the taxpayers that if we're putting money to work to make these projects work, there's a payoff. That payoff has to be in terms of GDP growth. It needs to be in terms of royalties generated. It needs to be in terms of income generated for shareholders, which pay tax, which fund the social programs we have. And I think those are the discussions that are going to happen. How are these projects going to work? How do we create a scenario where the private sector will put money to work? How, if we are going to help catalyze those projects, how do we look voters and taxpayers in the eye and say we are spending their money wisely?
Have you thought about those mechanisms?
We have.
You have.
I am going to work closely with Minister Jean and others to figure those out.
Okay. You did mention critical minerals, which is obviously very important to Canada's future, and of course global trade, and what we see as the world's changing from an economic standpoint. This is something we've 15 years to get a mine permitted, no infrastructure, no processing and smelting capacity. We're all dependent on China. How do you see sort of that's a bit of a Gordian knot? Where do you start? How do we grow that capacity? We haven't had a new smelter built in Canada since 1950s, and that's an environmental challenge as well. So just curious as to how you see that fitting into your mandate and how to move that forward, because it's also complicated.
So the Prime Minister has said there will be one review. We can rely on the review of our partners. He said the process will get done in 2 years. My understanding is 2 years would make us pretty darn competitive in the world if we could do that.
So that applied the 15 years to 2 years on mining projects as well?
I think that is the goal. And so now what we have to do is reverse engineer how do we get there. One thing I can tell you, we're going to have to do a better job on economic reconciliation and having conversations right up front, because this won't work if we don't have First Nations on side right up front. I can tell you my experience at Hydro One, where we adopted that approach. Our new transmission lines are coming on ahead of schedule and under budget. And I think we have an opportunity. There is a moment where everyone wants to do this for Canada. Everyone's going to give a little bit to get a lot. What we're going to get is a Canada strong.
Do you see the federal Indigenous loan program expanding from its current size to your point, to make sure that
I think we just doubled it.
I think you need to do more.
I'm not going to get ahead of I'll give you an example. at Hydro One, when I got there, we hadn't built a new transmission line in 10 years. Today, we're building more transmission lines in Ontario than any other jurisdiction in North America. It's because we're doing it in partnership with First Nations. We have to create the mechanisms so First Nations have the opportunity to participate in the equity. The loan programs, the loan guarantee programs are important. And I feel a little bit weird lecturing people in Alberta about that because you've been doing it longer than anybody. I'm giving you hats off. Alberta was a leader. And I will tell you, in the conversations I had with First Nations here so far, they're practical leaders who want economic growth for their communities. That's a good thing. That creates a lot of alignment.
And creates opportunity for everybody.
Creates opportunity for everybody.
One of the things you mentioned in your remarks was about harmonizing and linking carbon markets across the country. That's complicated, to say the least. Just wonder,
as I am learning.
Just are there sort of, the Canada Growth Fund was established to do some of that work with the carbon contract for difference, et cetera. Is there a role for something like the Canada Growth Fund or something else to sort of help in the harmonization of those carbon markets? How do you see that coming together and working? Because everybody's...
So I'm not going to negotiate in public, but I think what Minister Jean and I would say is we have a series of tools in our toolbox. We need to think about how to use those tools, pardon the run-on, but use those tools to retool our economy. If we're going to use some of these tools, like the Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation or the Canada Growth Fund, we need to be able to look taxpayers in the eye and say, we have a clear vision for what the payoff for using that money is, and be able to articulate that to people. But if your question is that a tool in a toolbox? Absolutely, it's a tool in a toolbox.
Just building on a little bit, because we know the Canada Growth Fund has been involved in funding clean energy and transition companies like Evor and others. Just curious as to what other financial instruments you might be thinking about from your old days. Is there a case for flow-through shares in the clean energy space to boost access to capital, increase private investment? That's one of the challenges that has been, voiced. How do we access capital? How do we attract private capital? Flow-through shares were very, very successful in terms of attracting capital into the junior sector in the energy space.
So
I'll copy and change.
I sworn in on Tuesday. Started talking with Minister Champagne on Wednesday. Actually, I didn't talk because he was in Kananaskis and I was in Beach Lake at the cabinet retreat. So we kind of crossed in the air, I guess. But I'm sure those conversations will go on. And the goal will be to create tools and toolkits and what the Prime Minister has said, I'm focused on outcomes. We'll figure out how to get there. Let's not box ourselves in by saying, this is absolute, let's work together with industry, with First Nations, and say, what's the art of the possible? What's the art, if the goal is clear, what's the art of the possible?
Well, I know we're running short of time, and I really want to say thank you very much for being here, for delivering the message that you have. I think I speak for everybody here. We're encouraged by your words and your commitment to work with us and for us on the national, international stage to champion Canada's energy, conventional, clean, and look forward to hosting you again when your schedule permits. So thank you very much. Please join me in thanking the Minister. And I'd now like to welcome John Whalen from Imperial Oil to provide some closing remarks on behalf of our thanking sponsor. John was appointed to run Imperial Oil and officially took over from Brad Corson 2 weeks ago. He's 15 days in, so he's
seven
long.
times as long as I
I was
have.
just going to say that, Minister. He's ahead of you, but not by much.
Well, thank you, Deb, for the introduction, and thank you, Minister Hodgson, for making your way to Calgary so early in your tenure and for your remarks here today. Good morning, and thank you to everybody in the room who made it a priority to be with us today to hear the Minister's perspectives on the future of the critical work, products, and services we develop to provide the world with from this incredible province. As Deb mentioned, I'm John Whalen, Chairman, President, and CEO of Imperial Oil, now officially on the job for 15 days. And as the Minister joked with me yesterday, that's twice as long as he's been on the job, so let's get down to business. While I'm new to this role, I'm certainly not new to Calgary. Before returning to Imperial in my current capacity, from working a global role with ExxonMobil over the last 5 years, I was the Senior Vice President of the Upstream for Imperial, and my family and I have continued to maintain our home base in this great city. What I know from my 37 years in industry and what that has given me is a deep respect for the work we do, and as the Minister said, for the people who do it, and a keen understanding of how critical the energy industry is to the quality of life that Canadians depend upon. Minister Hodgson, your leadership comes at a pivotal time for Canada's energy sector. Having someone with extensive background from the private sector elect to step into politics is exceedingly rare. And I would acknowledge and thank you for your service and for doing that. We recognize the emphasis on the need for a balanced approach to infrastructure development, one that considers not only environmental, but also social and economic dimensions of energy policy. And while the path forward is not without challenges, many of which you touched upon today, the renewed sense of collaboration is welcomed and genuinely appreciated. Your leadership is crucial in fostering a collaborative environment where Canada can thrive. We urge your ministry to prioritize balancing economic and environmental imperatives, streamlining regulatory processes, and creating investment certainty. Most importantly, Minister, is that we work together to advance Canada's energy agenda. Your being here today is a clear sign to industry of your intentions to prioritize that collaboration with the sector. Imperial has been in business for 145 years, for just about as long as Canada has been a nation, and we have worked alongside every government in our shared history to build this important industry, and that is precisely what we will do with you and your government as well. We are fully supportive of the Prime Minister's vision of Canada becoming an energy superpower. We have the resources, we have the technology, we have the capability and the people to enable that vision to become a reality. And if there's one message I leave with you, it is put us to work. With the right investment climate, we can achieve the Prime Minister's vision. And the quote you said earlier today very much resonates with me. We will no longer be defined by delay, we will be defined by delivery. I believe I speak for everyone in the room when I say thank you for coming early. Please come often. And let's work together to tackle these critically important issues. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the Chamber, please join me in thanking Minister Hodgson.
As you wish. Thank you, John, and thank you for your words. You've really encapsulated all that, the sentiment in this room. Yes, let's get to work and let's make Canada the country that we know it can be, harnessing the power of our natural resources. Once again, I would like to thank Minister Hodgson and your team for making time to be here with Calgary's business community. Your presence here so soon after the election and since you've been sworn in, and your messages have set the tone for collaboration and conversation, and for that we are all very grateful. I'd like to also thank our sponsors for your generosity and support during today's event, because we're very grateful as a chamber that you have helped us put this together. So our supporting sponsor, Suncor, thanking sponsor Imperial Oil, our supporting sponsors ATCO, Capital Power, Pathways Alliance, Enbridge, Tourmaline, Pembina Pipeline, Altalink, Global Public Affairs, Cenovus, ConocoPhillips, CAP, Meg Energy, E3 Lithium, Southboat, TC Energy. We are only as strong as our community, and the ongoing support from each of you allows us to do what we do every day. Truly, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much. I'd also like to thank the Fairmont Palliser and their amazing staff for helping put on this incredible event this morning. And last but certainly not least, I want to thank the Chamber staff for organizing today's event. A lot of effort goes into making these events the great experiences that they are for all of you. And we've had a very busy week already. We're gearing up for another busy week. And I'm just so proud of the team for pulling this together at a moment's notice. We have each other's back, and we make things happen, and we work together to make sure that we can do things like this for all of you. Finally, I'd like to just take a moment to share some of our upcoming events. May 27th, we're hosting WestJet CEO Alexis von Hansbroek. He will be delivering WestJet's annual address to the business community. Also on the 27th, we're hosting a panel conversation on inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility, the shifting landscape, and where we're headed. Next Friday, the 30th of May, we're hosting Ministers Scow and Boychenko for a conversation on the future of tourism in Alberta. And if I might have a bit of time, we might just talk about the need for a new football stadium in Calgary. Never miss that opportunity. June 5th, we have Chamberfest, a party of 600 of our closest friends coming together to support all that is Calgary business. June 9th, we're hosting our 133rd AGM. Yes, we are a small startup, 133 years old. Featuring a very exciting guest speaker, the Wild FC CEO, Lara Murphy. Tickets for all our events can be found online at calgarychamber.com. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you again, Minister, and have a great weekend, everyone.